I suppose it's quite simple in a sense why humans like stories. As a species, we grew up around the fire in our tribal setting. As we developed or acquired language, we would tell stories, maybe tales of beasts or predators, tales of triumph against the elements, ghost stories as well, no doubt. Listening to or telling stories is a core part of being human. Yeah, one way we try to understand the world and each other. And you can see that every culture on Earth has its own storytelling traditions. I do like to read, but like most people in the West, I spend a fair bit of leisure time watching film or some episodic creation. Soap operas I can do without, but I get why they're popular. I get why pro wrestling is popular, which is a soap opera of a sort, isn't it? So, this last week or so, I've been watching back a film franchise of 1980s horror fame, and they did a remake almost 10 years ago, but I prefer the original. I speak of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Not my most favourite horror series ever, but it's gained what you might call a cult following over the years. I can remember growing up as a kid in the 90s era of VHS, those clunky great big tapes. Me and a couple of mates used to sneak into the living room of one of my old friends and go through his older brother's video collection and pull out the colourful and startling Freddy Krueger films and watch the carnage in the small hours with the sound down low. When you're a kid, you just watch these things for the shock factor. And yeah, it's pretty gratuitous violence in these movies, but even so, there is a story there which pulls you in and takes you along for the ride. Watching it back as an adult, dare I say, you can appreciate such works on another level. The shock factor might be gone, but you are seeing things afresh in another sense. The story isn't really about, in the central sense, a child-killing monster from beyond the grave, hell-bent on murdering the kids of Elm Street. Okay, so that's obviously a part of the plot, but the centre or core of the story is about a young woman. The woman changes from film to film. She's a person finding herself, finding an inner strength in very crazy and challenging circumstances. And you see a network of friends being killed off. And although the protagonist might draw a good deal of strength from the bonds that she's forged, ultimately she has to face what in the narrative of the story would be the manifestation of evil. She has to face it alone and rise above fear, sum up the courage to triumph over the villain. It's a very common type of narrative with a few variations to fit one tale or another, but people seemingly can't get enough of this story type. Yeah, interestingly, the Nightmare on Elm Street story is also about the youth, or the younger generation, paying for the crimes, or the sins if you like, of the older generation, and this adds to the natural tension between kids and parents in the movies. But I don't think this aspect is overplayed as such. The skepticism of the parents is also an aspect woven into all this. And because it's a supernatural tale, you have religious elements pushing through. And this is kind of amplified by the fact that death and the fear of death flow through the movies. So Freddy Krueger facilitates the story rather than being the centre of it. And he's not too deep or fleshed out as a character. It might have worked against the film's popularity if he was, maybe. The predator-prey relationship on screen. If done well, it's always going to be a draw. The almost irresistible force of the powerful hunter looking to track down the potential victim, the underdog, seeking to escape against the odds. You don't want to be too analytical when watching a movie. No, don't be pulling threads. Enjoy the ride, I will often tell myself. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Please rate and subscribe, and I will see you next video, folks.